What up, YouTube? First of all, I want to say thanks. I got, 800 something views in my last political vlog for like the soul of the country. Wasn't expecting that. And just the audience retention got to get a little bit better. I think it was like an average of like a minute and a half in the vlog, so I got to get better. I stained my deck here, so that's why I can't be up here or up on the deck. Got to let that cure for a couple days, but what is it? Oh, breaking news. We have Lindsey Graham, the Republican senator from South Carolina, has died. Um, and if you're a lefty or if you're a Democrat, anybody on the left, anybody that's got any moral compass whatsoever, that's a great thing. No, I don't wish people to die, but the guy was not a good guy. The guy would want to have a war and send our people off in the military to fight and die for endless wars. So no, this guy's not a good guy. Good riddance. Um, the guy's not a good guy. Literally, he was in favor of like every single war. Like the guy was not a good guy, and like there wasn't a war that this guy didn't like. All right, whether it be with Iran and Israel, with the Iraq War, with Afghanistan, when Joe Biden pulled our troops out of Afghanistan, out of harm's way, he wanted us to stay in Afghanistan forever. Didn't even have a timetable to get our troops out of war. So anybody that's like does like the little fake crocodile tears of, when Democrats and stuff rejoice over this guy being gone. Let's go back to his Truth Social things where he said he was glad that Robert Mueller was dead and everything else. Okay, we ain't playing this game. Okay, we're not playing this game. People on the left, we're not, we're not gonna fall into the little stupid trap where they do the little fake little tears of, oh, you can't talk about the dead, even if they were terrible, disgusting, horrible people that raised the cost of living for you and his own constituents in the state of South Carolina, and didn't raise taxes on the wealthy, and gave tax cuts to the wealthy, um, and screwed over working class people of South Carolina, which are his own constituents. So I originally thought that his vacancy was going to be a vacancy in the whole uh, state of South Carolina until they reelected another senator. But here I was wrong. I actually had to look up the rules of it. Now they're going to replace him to fill out the rest of his term, and then they're going to, have another election for the Republican senator from South Carolina. So, like, so I originally thought it was going to be a 51-47 Republican lead in the Senate, but it's still going to be 52, more than likely. We have Annie Andrews that's running on the Democratic side. She's got an uphill battle because even how doesn't matter how well the Democrats perform. Like you have a lot of these states that will still easily sway Republican, and it's just like if a Republican runs in uh, California, for example. It's like, you know they could be perfect in, we know they're not good on policy. They suck on policies. People on the right suck on policy. They are on the wrong side of history every single time. But just say for argument's sake that they did everything right. They were populist, and like even then they still wouldn't win in the state of California. That's what I'm saying with the state of South Carolina. It's like these guys, like, they talk about tough on crime and all this shit, and it's like all their little policy bullshit, all their little propaganda. Like, for example, they banned so-called socialists and communists from holding public office. Look that up. That's it's not in the Constitution, but it's actually in McCarthyism in the 50s, mid 1950s, late 1950s, just before the invasion of Vietnam and then the Korean War. Um, so like they tried to ban lefties that would actually benefit workers, farmers, union members, everyday people, and tax the wealthy more, and keep pensions going and have better programs for everyday working class people. So, like, people don't want to talk about that history of America, but America's got a huge history of being against the working class. Its own government and its own people are like anti-working class, bourgeoisie. Um, like you can look at the history books of it, like all the way down to the forming of this country. We are formed by slave owners. Formed by slave owners. Like, I don't know. Honestly, right now at this point, we'd be better under the Commonwealth. We'd be better under the Crown. Because they have universal health care. They have an earlier retirement date than the United States. Ours is 67 and a half, I believe, to get full benefits. Theirs is like, what, 62, 63, 64, something like that. Like, it's not much, but it's a couple years sooner than the American system. All their health care is paid for. Their people live longer. Their people are healthier. They live longer. They're happier, and their country isn't always in forever wars. So, just after 4th of July, it's like, do I think that the United States is better off being independent right now as we are versus being under the Crown or under the Commonwealth? No. No. Our people are living worse. We have higher costs of living. We have for-profit health insurance. We have longer retirements. What else? Wages are down. Our environment is shit. And the CEO to worker ratio is expanding massively, right? Like the last time I checked, it was like 2,000 something, I don't know, 2,500 something to 1. Like union membership is at its lowest membership. And that, that's a correlation between the income inequality in this country. You have 2/3 of Americans living paycheck to paycheck. Like, no, this country ain't better off on its own. Like, the only thing different from the United States being independent right now than under the Crown is that literally the wealth income gap is massive. All right, we have the first trillionaire in the United States, Elon Musk. All right, like, you go to other countries like in England or like France or Germany, guess what? They gave you a card, right? I met a guy from Germany in a different environment, and I was like, that's how your healthcare works? Yeah. They put it on a card and the government pays for it. Right? Like in this country, not a thing. Not a thing. Co-pays, deductibles, what else? In-network, out-of-network, and then 3 different types of insurance, eyes. So eyes, teeth, and regular body insurance. There's 3 different types of insurance. This country's a scam. All right. So it's like, do I wish that we were better off being independent? Yes, but we're not. No, we're not. We'd be better off under the Crown. All right. In fact, actually, Canada, believe it or not, Canada didn't reach its full independence from the United Kingdom until the late 1980s. I think it was 1982 or 1986, 1989, something like that. It was in the 1980s that they finally had their full independence of their territories and their province and national sovereignty. But the thing is, though, it's like they were doing that beforehand, but they had full autonomy. But it's like at the same time, though, it's like, their people seem happier, their people seem better, and it's like the only thing that our independence really taught us is it's more bloodshed for what? A massive violent uprising? For what? For what? For ownership of slave owners. Is that really the best system? I'm just saying. Is that really the best system we got? That really the best system we got? We got independence, but the founding fathers were slave owners. What? So we changed one oppressor to another oppressor. So in essence, the United States isn't actually free. So it's like mind blown. And then on top of that, if you guys look at the history, it's like the United States, if we would have stayed under the Crown, we would have actually been more free sooner than being independent. How so? Well, the abolition of slavery was already abolished in the English colonies in 1831, 1832. Boom. We had a fucking war over it, and millions of our own people fought and died in the Civil War. Right? So, and it was all, again, just like everything else, corporate and special interests fought for slavery. Right? For and against slavery. So it was like, you formed your own country by slave owners. So another ruling class of bourgeoisie And we had more bloodshed in both wars: the Revolutionary War, War of 1812, and then the American Civil War. So it's like we had all this bloodshed for what? For real. It would have been better, more stable, and better quality of living under the crown. Unless I can be proven wrong, at least from what I'm seeing in history, it would be better under the crown. All right. The only like the advantages of being American, and I'm not even saying everyday American. I'm just saying in America itself, it's like the wealthier are wealthier than like in Europe, right? Than in like Britain. But like the wealth income gap is massive, right? There's more industry here, but it's like it doesn't benefit everyday workers. So it's like, yeah, you have this individualism, but it's toxic as fuck. All right, like people are living paycheck to paycheck. We don't have universal health care still. That's viewed as communist and socialist by other generations of people. We have three different types of insurance, right? It doesn't come out through your taxes. And our people, retire at 67 and a half to receive full benefits, and most people don't even fucking retire before they die in this country. So like this country deserves so much more. The people deserve so much more. And no, we're not better off being independent right now. At least right now, under this current government, we're not, man. We're not. There's no stability in this country. There's no stability, right? Like the intelligent people are the ones that are like gaslighted by the stupid people into thinking that they're wrong, right? Like look at the stuff that they support and the stuff that they believe. It's like they make the country worse, right? And like right wingers make the country worse. They make it more unsafe. They divide working class people, so on and so forth. But the death of Lindsey Graham, it's like, you have news that keeps saying, oh, Trump ally, oh, he'll be missed, and you have mainstream American media saying that this guy will be missed. Like, American media, do your fucking job. Do your job. This guy was literally in favor of every single conflict that put our military service in harm's way and died for what? Rice farmers in Vietnam? Fucking the Mujahideen? The fucking Taliban? Al Qaeda? Like, we're fighting proxies and organizations that fought and killed ISIS and Al Qaeda. Yeah, that's right. You heard me right. We're fighting proxies in Iran that literally fought ISIS and Al Qaeda and other radical terrorist groups that targeted innocent civilians. So it's almost like the United States government likes this instability in the region so they can have a puppet government, just like they did in the 1950s. I think it was with Pahlavi that they installed. I think that's who they installed in the 50s. And then the Iranian people were tired of having a puppet government of the United States at the time. So in 1979, the Iranian Revolution started, and then that's when they put in their theocratic government, which was worse off. So it's like the United States creates its own problems in the world, and like we elect politicians that make more problems in the world. It's like, who's the biggest threat to global security and global peace and world peace in the world? America. America. Do you see France and Germany doing this shit? Do you see Canada doing this shit? No, they're worrying about their domestic issues. But what did Donald Trump say in his video? I think it was at the White House or in an interview. He said, "We don't have money for childcare. We don't have money for childcare." And then what else did he say? To quote him, he says, well, actually, not to quote him, to paraphrase. I don't think about everyday Americans at all. End quote. That was his quote, or similar to his quote. He doesn't think about everyday Americans at all. It's almost like this country is like replaced one oppressor to have another oppressor. Rich people, rich owners, and donors. So it's like, are we better off under a constitutional monarchy or a oligarchy? Just saying. because the parliamentary system in England is actually more democratic than in the United States with the Electoral College. Just saying, just saying. But because they actually directly vote for their constituents, they directly vote for their representatives, right? Whereas in the United States, you vote, but then whatever party wins in that state, in the general election, their electors for their party decide those electoral votes go to which candidate. So you're not directly voting for those people, right? But most of the time it works. But I'm telling you that it's not democratic. So it's almost like if we weren't independent, we'd be more democratic than we are now. America, you played yourselves. So it's crazy. It's crazy. But yeah, to kind of get into the colonial history of the United States, it's like, okay, what, we broke away from Britain because of the taxes. What, taxes on tea and taxes on different, consumer goods. And it's like, we have massive food prices. We have no taxes on the wealthy. And when I mean no taxes, I mean low taxes, right? So it's like, we need another revolution in this country. Away from the slave owners and the business owners and the working class people. That's socialism. That's socialism. That's communism. Can't do that. Can't have regular working class people rule the country. Nope, that's socialism. Whatever, call me socialist, call me red, but that's democracy. And if socialism doesn't work, then why is China going to surpass the United States by 2030 with their 1.33 billion people? Socialism does work, and it's been proven, right? But do I think that there should be democracy? Absolutely. Democracy and liberal values and cores and principles. Absolutely. Absolutely. But it's like, nope. So any capitalist or, any right-winger that wants to say capitalism works, it's great, it works. No, it doesn't. Proof that capitalism doesn't work, come to America. You literally have to pay for-profit health insurance so that you're covered. And then for it to activate, you have to pay a minimum deductible on top of that. And then they can decide whether you get it or not. Or if you're not in network, it's a higher price. Right. So capitalism totally works, totally successful. Socialism doesn't work. That's why we have Social Security, retirement, child labor laws, environmental laws, because of socialism. But yeah, capitalism totally works. It's fine. No flaws. Perfect. No. So yeah, I'm done with right wingers. And then guys, I waved at people that passed by, just to be friendly. But yeah, it's like we should be making people's lives better. But yeah, the more I read up on the country's history and everything else, it's like y'all played yourselves, right? Like the people at the forming of the country played themselves, because like all the way down to the War of 1812, it was the impressing of American sailors on British boats. Remember, at this time, the United States didn't really have a navy. They didn't really have a military, right? They were just formed, 20, 30 years prior. So it was like, okay, you didn't have a navy, and the crown themselves, I think it was 2 days after they declared war, because keep in mind, they didn't have technology back then. But the parliament and the monarchy at that time already ruled against the impressment of American sailors, right? And so it's like, okay, so you went to war anyways. You kept the war going for 3 years into 1815. What they don't talk about the War of 1812, all they talk about is the Star-Spangled Banner, because keep in mind, this country is brainwashed. This country's brainwashed. They don't want to talk about the dark history of America. They don't want to talk about the shadiness of America. But it's like, the United States, we invaded Canada in the 18 teens, in the War of 1812. And they thought that, just like in Russia with Ukraine, the Americans thought that they were going to be welcomed as liberators and freedom fighters, and they got fought back harshly and crushed by literally 600 British soldiers on one of their forts, okay? I think it was Mackinac, I believe it was, Fort Mackinac. something like that. I think that's the name. I could be wrong. I could be squashing that name. But it's like, you got your ass beat by 600 soldiers. You guys couldn't hold a fucking fort on the border with Canada. And then you invaded a sovereign country to take more land, again, that they did with the Indians earlier. And it's like, no, you guys are the oppressors that you guys say that you guys are trying to stay free from the oppressors of the crown. You guys are the oppressors, right? So it's like, we tried to do that, and then we lost, got our ass handed to us, all right? I think we went into Quebec and modern day Ontario, got our ass handed to us. They pushed us back below our border. They actually stormed into Washington, D.C., burned down the original White House. So anybody that wants to talk about the White House and how patriotic it is, they don't even know the history because they burned down the original White House. So technically speaking, it's not the original White House. It's a restored version of the White House years later after the War of 1812 ended. So technically, you got your ass handed to you. And then what happened next was our president and our politicians fled like bitches. Now, nobody wants to talk about this history. They just want to talk about the patriotism of this country, which, whatever. Americans are weird. They don't want to talk about actual history. They just want to talk about patriotism and American exceptionalism. It's really weird in this country. Like, people are brainwashed by their government, but yet we talk about how free we are. We're not. We're not free. But, like, Americans are very weird with their patriotism. But, like, no, they burned down the White House. And then they burnt down, I think they fought the Americans at Baltimore, Maryland. And then they retreated back. And then our politicians and our president, before they stormed Washington, D.C. and the White House, they took the U.S. Constitution, the original Constitution documents and art and original documents and stuff, and got that out of the White House before they burned it down. And it's like, nah. It's like, it didn't even need to happen, right? The whole conflict. So, like, even when they got that communication in years' time, it was like, okay, you didn't call off the war. They didn't get that until years later, right? Like 2-3 years later. Because keep in mind, sailing on boat, like, they didn't have engines. They didn't have this technology that we take for granted now. So, like, this took years for them to go from the colonies, well, the U.S. at the time, a very young U.S., all the way to England, to London, and show it to the crown. And then, like, so we fought a war for 3 years, got our ass handed to us, and then we signed a treaty. And I would have to say, out of the goodwill out of England, they actually had more land of America than we did of their land in Canada. So if we would have surrendered right then and there with the current treaty, like, and ceded our land, we would have lost massive amounts of land because we didn't have a military. We had spineless politicians that fucking didn't hold the ground at Washington, D.C. because, you know, they wanted to, you know, they wanted to still have leadership. They didn't want to have to lose their government. But it's like, that's not patriotic. That's not heroic. You fled the fucking capital, and then what did they do? They went to, like, I don't know what it was. They went to, like, different fucking buildings to vote on certain bills. But it's like, realistically, like, and I love my country, but it's like, we need to look at that shit and go, like, that's not patriotic. They can have all the patriotic songs and the Star Spangled Banner, but it's like, realistically, the United States would have ceded more land versus gained with the invasion of Canada. So it's like, mind blown. We almost got our ass handed to us again, right? And it's like, I love my country. I really do. But it's like, American historians don't talk about that type of history because that doesn't look patriotic. That doesn't fit a political narrative. That doesn't fit fucking how Americans feel about their country and shit. So I get it, but it's propaganda. So it's like, the only reason that the United States in the Revolutionary War didn't completely fold up was because England was still stuck with France. If you took on the full military force of Britain, the United States wouldn't have existed, right? So they were tied up with France, and France was giving us weapons and helping Indians fight the British as well. So it's like that was a good thing from France, right? And we still have a soft spot for France even today with the Statue of Liberty and great things like that. But it's like we can't fool ourselves, and Americans don't want to look at this part of history because they're brainwashed. Like a lot of Americans, like when they look at history, are brainwashed. Like they think that some will actually think that we are the best country in the world. Best in what? I don't know. Best military, I guess. I don't know. Most money, I guess. But best in what? I don't know. They just say best country in the world, whatever the fuck that means. But best in the world with as far as taking care of our people? Fuck no. Fuck no. But yeah, it's crazy because it's like we could have got completely demolished both wars, right? And it wasn't until like the 1860s that like we really started modernizing our military and starting getting really, really expanding our military. And all the way into the 1900s. And that's when early 1900s, that's when we really expanded as a, military superpower. But it's like, we're kidding ourselves if we think like during both of those wars, the Revolutionary War and the War of 1812, like that if Britain really wanted to, they could have just brought their entire military, shifted it from the Napoleonic Wars, and completely taken over the United States again. It's like the only reason, and the same thing with the Revolutionary in the War of 1812. The only reason that the United States wasn't completely occupied again was because they were dealing with France in both wars, right? They were dealing with them for decades. So it's like they had the numbers. And even if they didn't have homeland soldiers on direct British land, they hired what the hell were they called? They were like an Austrian or Germanic private mercenary group, the Hessians. So they would also hire them too. So it's like no, like if they could have afforded it, they would have crushed the rebellion like nothing. They would have crushed the War of 1812 like nothing. But they were dealing with another front in the European theater. So it's like, I get it. Americans like to like their country. I get it. But realistically, it's like, no, both times we could have ceased to exist as a country, right? But realistically, though, like people don't want to talk about that. People just want to talk about, oh, George Washington's great. And it's like, oh, really? These guys were slave owners. They were slave owners. They were ruling over the working class people, right? And they try to say, well, it was a different time back then. Oh, really? Because everyday people weren't slave owners, mind you. Everyday people were farmers, all right? They were factory workers, blacksmiths, all right? Different, tailors, different jobs, right? They weren't slave owners. That was for the ruling class. That was for the upper class, right? So it's like, no, you just changed your oppressor to slave owners and then try to say that you're free, right? But it's like, no. So, and then when you look at the facts of the case of like slavery, it's like slavery was abolished in the English colonies, not just, not just England itself, but all of the colonies in all of the continents that it owned. The sale and trade of slavery was abolished in 1831 or 1832. Look that up. All right. We had to fight a war over that. So like when I look at America versus England in this specific time, 1860 to 1770, 1770 to 1860, it's like we were literally wasted millions of lives in both fucking wars of something that was prevented 30 years ago by the crown. So are we realistically smarter than the crown? No. Now, do we have a better military now than the crown? Yeah, of course. We have lots of money. But does that money go directly towards the people? The regular people? The peons? The workers? The peasants? No. It goes to the ruling class. It goes to the owners, the donors, right? Doesn't directly get funneled into us. We get the fucking scraps. But when you look at it like now compared to, then it's like, no. The United States was, when you look at that time of history, even now, America and Britain in Great Britain, we were behind the 8 ball for decades. Slavery, we were behind the 8 ball for 34 years before the end of the fucking Civil War. They abolished slavery 30 years prior, before the Civil War started, mind you. And they avoided bloodshed. Now, keep in mind, they had tons of bloodshed all the time trying to suppress uprisings, but they avoided that specific bloodshed. What did the America do? Who are the states that were fucking keeping the fucking slave trade going at that time? Southern states. The northern states didn't really have a thing for it. They wanted, most of them were abolitionist states, right? So it was like, who are the fucking people at that time? At that time, they we'd be considered what? Democrats, but Democrats back then versus now are inverted, right? So Democrats back then in the Civil War were states' rights, where it's now it's the exact opposite. So Republicans now are states' rights, and Democrats are strong federal government, right? So it's flip-flop. So anytime people say Democrats back then and Democrats now, it's like they inverted political ideologies. Same thing with Republicans. So Republicans back then were a strong federal government, aka the Union. And then now it's the opposite. Conservatives now, Republicans now, are states' rights. That's the argument that you hear, at least, from them. So it's like, they're not one-to-one the same thing now. You know what I mean? So like when you see arguments like that, they're coming from a person that's not educated, that's ignorant of the fact of their ideologies, completely reversed, and completely two different parties. So the Republican Party back then would have been the Democratic Party today, and the Democrats back then would be the Republican Party now, right? So it's completely inverted, right? So like, and I learned that shit in history class when I was in school. But it's like, now it's like, who were basically doing it? Modern day Republicans, but Democrats, that's what they were called back then. So it's like, so it's basically conservatism, again, caused all that massive bloodshed that was already abolished by the crown 30 years prior, and we're worse off now than we were under the crown. Call me crazy, but I think we probably would have been better off under the crown. Just saying. Just saying. They voted for their own fucking politicians directly. They didn't go through a electoral college. They voted for their own they even had their own constitution all the way back in, I think it was 1215, the introduction of the Magna Carta. The Magna Carta, which took power away from the monarch of England and gave it to the nobility. And they could have checks and balances on the monarchy of the lower subjects of the nobility against the monarchy. So it's like, they're more democratic than America was. Funny how that works, don't it? But yeah, it's like, no, we just replaced oppressors. That's all we did. We replaced the oppressors with slave owners. And then those ancient slave owners that had an old ideology were the ones that got us into a war almost 100 years later after the country's founding. So it's like Republicans now are the same thing with all the issues today. It's the same shit. Nothing changes. Nothing fundamentally changes. Nothing changes. 67 and a half years of age to retire in this country. Nothing for fucking environmental regulation. Pulled us out of the Paris Climate Accords. Pulled us out of the White House. Jesus. Pulled us out of the World Health Organization, which shares all of our analytical data with vaccines and medical information with all the other countries around the world, and doctors and everything else. Like, this country's getting stupider. This country's getting stupider. Every time there's a conservative in office, the country gets fucking stupider. And I hate to sound biased, but it's true. Like, when, Lindsey Graham's gone. I don't like the guy. And people need to stop, like, treating it like this is like, oh, it's just the difference of opinion. No, like, this guy literally started wars, got our military people killed. I know people that are service members or ex-service members, and it's like, you know what, they got us into wars that we didn't need to be in, fighting rice farmers, goat herders. People had different ideologies, and, and created all this violence for what? Corporate and special interests, right? The defense contracting companies, right? It's not for the betterment of that country. Like, if you look at military interventions between the United States since the last, 120 years, from 1900 to now, a lot of these countries Panama and fucking all different types of countries, right? Um, Trying to think of other ones. Like Chile and Argentina and Nicaragua and Honduras. All these countries we tried to topple. They were democratically elected governments. And yes, they were even democratically elected socialist governments. And people that actually voted for the politicians that they wanted to bring about much needed reform against bourgeoisie policies. So, yeah. So, in essence, the United States government literally funds instability and corporate interests. Like they don't look at like the everyday issues. And if you look at same thing with U.S. spies, because I was seeing a U.S. spy film yesterday. I think it was John Kirasaki or something like that. I forget. I don't know his last name. Smart guy, right? He used to be in the CIA, but it's like every time that the CIA would do stuff, it wasn't in the national interest of everyday Americans. No, no, no. It was based on the corporate and economic interests of America, not the average everyday people. So, like, they would topple governments that would help the economic betterment and economic interests of our country and its allies, but it wouldn't directly benefit us. You see what I'm saying? Same thing with Cuba, the country of Cuba. Like, okay, you try to topple Cuba, you haven't. You had Obama that lifted the embargo that's been going on for almost 100 fucking years. Jesus Christ, almost 100 fucking years. All right, it's not 100 years. It's about what, almost 70 plus years now. This is about as old as a retired guy, as a retired old man. That's how long the Cuba embargo has been going on. All right, Obama took it off, right, and we would do trade with Cuba. What happened? Donald Trump's second term. Actually, in his first and second term, put him back on. Joe Biden didn't rip out that embargo again, so he kept it on, kept it status quo. So it's like they're driving cars that are from the 1950s America still because they're so poor. All right, so like the United States creates problems in the world, the government, right? And until you purge those people either through voting or through running for Congress or whatever. I'm not saying violence, because that's never the answer. But until you do that, the United States is always going to be a national security threat in the world. Like the United States, literally everything it touches turns to shit. Right? Look at all the governments that we've done in the Red Scare, during the Red Scare in the 1950s and 60s. We've toppled governments that were quote unquote communist or leftist or socialist, and they were democratically elected, or they didn't want to be involved with the United States. Therefore, we got to put in our puppet government because capitalism works. No, it doesn't. It doesn't work because you're trying to fucking topple them, right? So if you're trying to topple them, capitalism doesn't work. Sorry to hate to break it to you, but capitalism doesn't work if you have to topple every government that has a different ideology and different type of government than the United States. Hate to break it to you. Capitalism doesn't work. If you have to topple every government to match your needs and economic interests of your country, capitalism doesn't work. All right. And you'll see that through time and time again. Like we did deals with the drug cartel member Raul. Is it Raul Noriega? I don't know his first name, but his last name's Noriega. Like we did all these deals. We propped up dictators like Saddam Hussein, but then when he turned his back and actually did the sovereignty of Iraq, keep in mind these guys were ruthless dictators, right? Ruthless dictators. And I'm not excusing the war crimes and shit that they did, because they were horrible people, horrible dictators, horrible government. But at the same time, though, it's like when they represented the sovereignty of Iraq, and then they invaded Kuwait, in the 1990s with Operation Desert Storm. It was like, can't do that. That's our gravy train. Oh, now we're going to have a coalition with all of Europe to go and attack Saddam Hussein's forces. It's like, oh, really? You didn't do a fucking thing before that. You didn't do a goddamn thing. You gave them money. You gave them weapons. You did that shit in the 1980s with the Mujahideen in Afghanistan to fight the Soviets. You didn't give a fuck about the democracy of those countries. You fucking fought it because they were fighting against the rivals of the countries you don't like. All right, that's the only reason. You don't give a fuck about democracy. You don't give a fuck about equal rights for those women that were fucking harshly oppressed and abused by right wing forces and terrorist organizations in those countries. You don't give a flying fuck. You care about the fucking special corporate interests, right? So until you actually look at the actual interests of the country, like they're not looking at everyday people issues, right? They're looking at it as corporate and economic interests first and foremost. So like that's how the CIA works even to this day, right? That's how like they're able to get strikes on Iran and assassinate their Ayatollah Ali Khomeini. Excuse me if I botch his name or can't pronounce his name, but it's like no, they have spies and spy networks, and it's like all you guys do is you guys represent the corporate interests of the country, but you don't represent the overall interest of the public in world peace and world stability. Like, no, you make the world more dangerous, more unpredictable, more unstable. Like, you'd be surprised, right, of these government institutions, right? Like, ever since the CIA was formed, like, they tried to do the Bay of Pigs invasion under a Democrat with John F. Kennedy, right? They tried to recruit some Cubans to go and invade the island of Cuba. And, like, keep in mind, at this time, the Cuban government of Fidel Castro and stuff was, like, literally loved by his people. Now, the guy was bad. Wasn't like, you know, was not a good guy because he was a dictator. But it's like, at the same time, though, it's like, when they're loved by their people, you try to topple them. It's like, it's crazy. It's fucking crazy. But that's how our spy networks work. Is they create instability in the region to keep our power going, our military power and our superpower status. Like right now, we have spies that work with Israel and trying to create a greater Israel. And it's scary and it's sad and it's unfortunate. And I don't know what the future holds for the United States and Israel relations, because if it was up to me and I was in charge of the government in the executive branch, I would not be having relations with Israel. I would be breaking off and seizing communications with Israel, and I would cut off the funding of the weapons, any type of aid, because if the United States stops giving them aid, they completely topple like a house of cards. All right, like the only country that's keeping Israel afloat as a state is the United States. You stop giving them weapons and stop giving them money and foreign aid, they dry up. They don't exist because they don't have any industry other than constant war. Constant war. Like, keep in mind this. If you look at the history of Israel, like, Israel's literally been, since basically its forming, like, they've had tons and tons of wars with other neighboring countries around them. Like, they've fought wars against every single country around them. And it's like, you're not the fucking victim. You're the fucking, you know, agitator. You're the suspect in all these wars, right? And it's like, it's true. And so like when you see conservatives and especially Democrats, because Democrats that support Israel are a wolf in sheep's clothing. So anytime you ever hear people say, "Oh, back Israel," all this shit, well, you know, vote them out of office, primary their ass. We know Republicans are pro-Israel. But they're doing a genocide in Gaza. They're doing the shit in the West Bank. They've already leveled 90% of Gaza. Look that up. They leveled 90% of Gaza. They've taken the Golan Heights. What else? They're attacking into southern Lebanon. And then you have Israel that's got the balls and audacity to say to Iran when they tried to do a ceasefire, yeah, we're going to keep attacking southern Lebanon. What? In the United States, what does the United States do? Nothing. Because the United States is bought and paid for by the Israel lobby. Look at AIPAC, the American Israeli Political Action Committee. That's what it's all about. Get Israeli money out of American politics. And they fund both both political parties in the United States to this day, including congresspeople. Look that up. Congresspeople, senators, and presidential candidates. Look that up. But yeah, it's like, no, Israel attacked us. I think it was in the 60s or 70s. I think it was. I don't know the specific battleship again. Like, I look at so much history that I forget some names or some dates, but I can, give you approximations. But it's like they attacked a U.S. battleship in the 60s. They said it was an accident, and then it was literally like an explosion that put a massive hole, a massive gash in one of our battleships in the region around Israel at the time, and it killed like a couple of our sailors. And Israel just said, "Oh, my bad, dog. It's an accident. You're bad. You're a fucking terrorist state. You should not exist." Right? Just like the Vatican shouldn't exist. The Vatican shouldn't exist, and Israel shouldn't exist. Flat out. Done. Shouldn't exist. Any religion that tries to create their own country should not exist. And keep in mind this, Israel does not have equal rights for Christians and atheists. Like, they literally, there was one Israeli person that actually targeted a Christian person and assaulted them. Walked right up or ran up to them and punched them in the face. Or punched them in the head or face. I couldn't tell by the camera view. So, no, they're not good fucking people. And like 90% of them support the war on Iran because they're fascists and they are Nazis. That's what they are. So they're literally trying to expand their territory, and like, keep in mind, right after World War II, they were just a fucking a little colony that was under British colonial rule, and it was a space for the Holocaust survivors and stuff to have as their own home, right? But you flip the script now; they are literally the people that are doing the Holocaust in today's age. Don't believe me? Look at all the fucking stories. All right, look at Al Jazeera. Like, you'd be surprised, right-wing media, American media doesn't cover it because they're funded by Israeli fucking special interests and everything else. You'd be surprised. American media does not cover it. Does not cover it. Like, I've seen the fucking gore photos and all this shit. It's like Israel literally targets civilians. They did. They've killed over 200,000 Palestinians with airstrikes. It's like, such an oppressed people, but now they're carrying the same Holocaust that they escaped to that started their own country. Mind blown. It's almost like they're the biggest hypocrites of the world. Oh, wait, they are. And they're terrorists at that. But yeah, it's like, it's crazy. It's crazy. Like, like the more educated you get and the more shit you read up on stuff, you're like, does that really exist? Are there really adults in the room? And it's like, yeah, that really happened. And no, there's no adults in the room. Like, the more you read up on stuff, you're like, when you're young, you think, oh, the adults got it. Everyday people got it. They got it figured out. No, they don't. No, they don't. They do whatever's the opposite, the worst possible option. That's what they do. That's what the U.S. government does. That's what our politicians do. You would be surprised. It is, when you look at it as a regular person, and I didn't even go to college, so I'm sure I would be even more to the tune of what I already think. But like, when you read up books and shit and see different foreign policy blunders by the United States and its allies and how they do stuff, it's like, this country's fucked up. Its allies are fucked up. We're allies with fucking terrorists. We're allied with Salafists in Saudi Arabia. Yes, the same Saudi government that funded the 9/11 hijackers. Yeah, look that up. That's real. Look that up. Yeah, we have military bases over there, and then we do weapons deals. Oh, and on top of that, they killed a dual citizen American reporter. So Jamal Khashoggi, he was an American and Saudi nationalist. He was a reporter, dual citizen of America and Saudi Arabia. Yeah, they beheaded him and dismembered him in a Saudi consulate in Turkey. That's right. Look that up. And they still could not find his body to this day. That happened under Donald Trump's first term in 2019. I believe it happened either in 2017 or 2019, but it happened. They dismembered his body, cut him up, and they disposed of his body in a black SUV, and they drove away and never be heard of again. Oh, and on top of it, you know what makes it even more disturbing? After they chopped his body up, there was a body double that dressed up in his clothes, wore his glasses, and walked out the door to make it look like it was him. That's what the Saudis did in their consulate in Turkey. Okay? That's what we're dealing with. Those are our allies. Those are our allies, guys. Allies. Right? But what did Donald Trump do? Nothing. Did he put sanctions on Saudi Arabia? Nope. Did he cut trade with them? Nope. Did he pull our military bases out? Nope. Didn't do a fucking thing. Business as usual, status quo. Nothing gets done under this administration and under this government. Nothing fundamentally changes. But yeah, so just goes to show the American allies are not allies. They're terrorists. All right. But is that like saying all of our allies are bad? No, the rest of Europe is pretty stable and normal. But when it comes to Israel and Saudi Arabia, fuck no, they're terrorists. All right, they shouldn't exist. All right, and they don't have equal rights and democracy in Israel. They don't. They're committing a genocide and a Holocaust, and the United States government doesn't do a fucking thing. They don't cut off the weapons. They don't cut off the money, so that they fail to exist as a nation state. They are literally committing an apartheid in Gaza, in the Golan Heights, in the West Bank, and now they're expanding into southern Lebanon. What are Republicans doing? You know what they say? If you're an actual lefty and you go against Israel, even Democrats will do this. You're for the terrorists. What? You're for the terrorists. What? No, the Palestinians are everyday people like you and me. Believe it or not, the reason why Hamas exists is because Israel is bombing civilians in Palestine. The reason why, Hezbollah exists is because Israel is bombing its allies and its people. So it's almost like the reason terrorist organizations exist is because you have over authoritative, despot governments that are killing innocent people, and these people respond by violence as well. So it's almost like we create the terrorism that we try to say that we're against. That's right. That's what the United States and its allies do. Just saying, that's what the United States government does. But it's crazy. Like I'm just a regular person, working class person, just like any other normal American. And I could be like, and I'm already more competent than the fucking leaders that we elect. How about that shit? Isn't that fucking scary? That should make you fucking scared. I'm more competent than the fucking politicians that we have. Holy shit. But yeah, so it's crazy because like when you look at it, the Iranian proxies like Hezbollah and Hamas, like they actually targeted ISIS and Al-Qaeda that are the worse off terrorist organizations. And nobody talks about that. American media just says, oh, we're killing terrorists. We're killing these people. But you actually have the Israeli government that literally released a video, and they weren't trying to incriminate themselves. But they were literally caught on comms, on communications saying that there was supposedly a terrorist, Hamas terrorist or whatever. Yeah, I think it was in Palestine. It was in Gaza. I don't think it was Iran. I think it was in Palestine. And the guy walked into a house or an apartment, and there was a wife and children, and there was regular civilians in that building. They bombed that fucking building with an unmanned aerial vehicle, UAV, from above, a drone. Boom! Leveled the building. That's how they work. They're terrorists. All right? They don't represent democracy. They don't represent liberty. They don't represent equality. As what the French would say, égalité, fraternité, liberté. They don't represent any three of those principles, right? And that's what they're doing. So yes, they are a terrorist organization, and the United States is propping them up. But yeah, until we get out the weapons and shit, Israel is going to keep doing it, and their Mossad, a secret intelligence agency, keeps getting dirt on all of our politicians so they can use it for blackmail to basically leverage it against their politicians so that they can keep doing their forever wars and killing all the people around in the Middle East and destabilizing the Middle East. What they're trying to do now, just like with Iraq is they're trying to destabilize Iran, and by destabilizing Iran now, you have no other Middle Eastern power in the region that's going to challenge Israel, right? So that's why you have this I almost said Iran-Iraq war. Whoops, my bad. Iran-Israeli war, right? That's the only block, that's the only stopping block between Israel expanding into the rest of the Middle East, right? So, and then the United States has its little puppet governments that are, funded and given money and everything else and special interest to, with the Gulf Arab states, right? The Gulf Arab states, it sounds like, oh, they're our friends, but it's like they're only our friends because we give them money and weapons, and they're not that great of a fucking government. They're not democratic. They're just fucking wealthy fucking Saudi wealthy oil fucking princes and wealthy, nobility that just own fucking tons of oil under their feet. They don't lift a fucking finger. And basically, the only people that go into those countries and go into those countries for tourism are the Epstein class, right? They're not everyday people like you and me, factory workers, technicians, farmers, nurses, doctors, lawyers. No, they're fucking Epstein class people that visit these countries. And now they don't even have tourism because of the ongoing war with Iran. So now they're losing out on money, and now they're pissed off at Trump because they're losing out on billions of dollars from tourism every year. So it's great. It's great. The United States government currently, it's atrocious. Like, I can make better decisions for my country than the politicians we elect. How scary is that? That's how incompetent our leaders are. That's how incompetent our politicians are. They're that incompetent. I'm telling you, guys. I'm telling you. The older that you get and the more educated you get into the stuff, you realize, holy shit, our country is cooked. It's cooked. All right? It's cooked. All right? But once you destroy the right wing of in this country, as far as ideologically, you get rid of their distractions and shit, and then you actually go to actually solve the issues, you'll realize, holy fuck, all their little distractions of trans people in bathrooms and all this other bullshit, and then you go and look at the shit that they left, say, Democrat goes into office and it's actually a true lefty, you'll realize, like, all the shit that they left for us is a fucking mess, all right? So again, if a Democrat wins, not just in Congress in the midterms for this year, but also in the presidential election in 2028, what do we got to do? Again, the last 3 cycles, Democrat comes in, fixes shit up. We got to do the fucking clean up the fucking Republicans' mess, and then even after that, you've already strained your relationship with our allies that they don't want to do business with you because what if you get another Republican in there? You got another fucking whack job. So they're like, fuck this. We're not going to do fucking trade deals with you guys. We're going to go do trade deals with China. They're already doing it. And how does that impact you and me, everyday workers? Well, guess what? They're no longer going to be buying as much American goods and services from America, so that's going to directly harm you, the worker, because that's going to take you out of a job. That's going to take you out of work. That's going to take you out of a paycheck, right? And that hurts our economy for taxes and all other issues, national security. If we don't have money coming in, this country's not going to last. The American empire is crumbling right now. We are a laughingstock around the world. We really are. We're a laughingstock around the world. Oh, and is America a 250 event? What did I say? What did I say? He's money laundering it? What did they find out? They're laundering it. They're laundering it. Called it. Called it. Doesn't go towards taxes or fucking bridges or fucking fixing everyday shit for Americans. Nope. Pocketing it. Slush fund, baby. Called it. I called it. I called it before it was even confirmed. Called it. Because as soon as I saw all the merchandise, the America 250 stuff, dude, this is a slush fund. This is a slush fund. How is this guy not in prison? Well, I'll tell you why. Right now, and here's another thing, by undemocratically appointed Supreme Court judges, they are literally not democratically elected by the American people. They're appointed by politicians in the executive branch and by Congress. But the Supreme Court literally ruled right when Trump, I think it was just before Trump got elected into the White House, they ruled that the president has executive immunity. So anything that they do in their time as the executive branch, they're pretty much non-prosecutable. So that pretty much means you can do whatever the fuck you want, and there's no checks and balances, and you can do all the war crimes you want, and you can't be prosecuted during your tenure as the president. So that's the majority conservative fucking Supreme Court saying that. So, yeah. So are we better off than without the crown? No. We are worse off. Our people are living worse off. Our people have to work longer. Some people have to work past retirement age because they don't have money. People are poorer in this country. I see more homeless people every fucking day. People can't afford basic shit like food, clothing, childcare. Fucking healthcare is a joke in this country. If you don't have insurance, you're fucked in this country. Millions of Americans fucking every year fucking have to go without healthcare because they can't afford it, right? Just so they can put food on the table. And it's just mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. But that's where we're at. But just keep fighting. You got to fight. Vote. I'm going to vote in the midterms. Voting Democratic, but I'm going to go to the left. I'm going to try to find the most progressive candidate. Vote for the progressive, if I can find it. But if not, I'm just going to vote for the Democrat. Because Republicans do not give a flying fuck. All right? And, yeah. So, thanks for the subs. I wasn't expecting to get 800 views and 12 likes or whatever. Cool. If I only get one view or if I get none, I don't really care. I like doing what I do. It is what it is. Probably my average view duration is going to be like a minute and a half. Again, I don't care. I like doing what I do. I like talking about the shit I like to talk about. That's what I do. And, yeah, peace.